This was the end of Joanna Jedrzejczyk. Got knocked out by Zhang Weili in the second round. It was a bit back and forth throughout, but Zhang Weili showed to be the better fighter in this. And it wasn't her striking that was getting the better of Joanna, it was her vastly improved wrestling. Zhang Weili has been training with Henry Cejudo, and in such a short amount of time, she has developed a level of wrestling that is a threat to the best anti-wrestler the strawweight division has ever seen, which means from now on, not only is Zhang Weili's striking going to be a threat to everybody, but her wrestling is as well. Maybe not to Carla Esparza so much, as she is probably the best wrestler in the weight class, but to even take her down is going to be difficult. I feel bad for Carla, I'm not going to lie. You're going to need a level of jiu-jitsu that perhaps Zhang Weili is not on the same level as, such as Mackenzie Dern, to be able to defeat her in this kind of area. But against Joanna, not only was her technique flawless outside of that hip toss, which I'm glad it kind of failed on her. I mean, that technique, unless you're like some Olympic judoka, elite level wrestler, you're probably not going to want to use that too much in MMA. But Zhang Weili's strength was something that Joanna had to talk about as well. Preparing for the fight, Joanna knew that Zhang Weili was going to shoot for takedowns. I mean, against Rose, she shot in many times. But she said she did not know how strong Weili was. And it's interesting because they fought each other before. Joanna felt her takedowns before, and Weili was only able to take her down once out of like 8 attempts. The fact that Joanna was shocked at how much stronger Weili is now than when she was like a year ago gives you 2 explanations as to why this happened. Number one, the fact that she is starting to perfect her technique and have someone like Cejudo behind her makes her able to apply her real strength, her natural strength, into these kind of techniques even more so. Or she's been doing something else in the meantime, and she hasn't gotten caught, so I'm not going to say that she is. I know some people are throwing that around right now. You know, how does Zhang Weili get so much stronger in such a short amount of time? But you cannot deny that her technical wrestling has gotten so much better. From her ability in the clinch to drive Joanna back using one underhook on the right side, picking up Joanna's right leg, and tripping out the other at the same time, throwing her into the corner of the cage and trapping her by lifting her leg upward above her own head. This has to be one of the most terrifying positions to be under someone, as you have no grounds under you. You have to roll out of this, but the fact that you're in the corner and Zhang Weili's putting weight on top of you while hammering you in the face, you're going to take some heat to get back up, and that's exactly what happened to Joanna. And from there, Weili did not let go of that single leg. She put her head on the outside of the single leg, lifting Joanna up off of the ground, and while she lets go of her, that was her time to get around to the back, as it looked like Joanna wanted to counter her with a Kimura. But Joanna, feeling that Zhang Weili elevated her off of her feet, Joanna abandoned the attempt and did not expect Zhang Weili to get to her back, to where she eventually got the deepest of a trip, stepped all the way into it to the point where her knee is touching the fence, and notice where her hands are, one around Joanna's back and one gripping her hand, rotating Joanna counterclockwise, which is going to force her to hop on one foot. But with the fact that Zhang Weili is putting pressure on top of her while she hops, this is automatically going to make her fall to her side. And then Weili digs in the Dagestani handcuff, gets into the same position Khabib gets on everybody, and starts hammering away Khabib style. And not only that, Weili was super aggressive on top, just simply stepping over Joanna to try to get into full mount but settle into half guard, where she started to punish Joanna with the elbows. So in the wrestling department, Zhang Weili absolutely dominated Joanna unlike anyone's ever done before. But when it came to the striking, it was fairly even. Weili put a lot of confidence into her right straight, just like she always does. Every time Joanna would throw a leg kick at her, instead of checking the leg kick, Weili is very susceptible to leg kicks, but she sees them coming. She tries to land a right hand over the top, but missed every single time. She had the right timing, but her placement of the punch was always off. But it wasn't just the right straight. Weili also was throwing a lot of side kicks, something she brought back into her game. And at one moment, she did something I've been talking about on my podcast for a while. When are fighters going to counter leg kicks using lead side kicks? And Zhang Weili did exactly just that. When Joanna throws a leg kick, Weili lifts the targeted leg upward and uses that as a side kick above, causing Joanna's leg kick to only hit air while she gets thrusted to the body. This is such an effective weapon against leg kicks. And the side kick itself actually set up that spinning back fist that knocked Joanna out. She threw the side kick and Joanna took off a little bit of an angle. She stepped to her right side when she was in the southpaw stance. That angle is an advantage for the opposite stance fighter to get on the outside foot to line up her left hand. Using the left, she's trying to also follow up with a right hook to try to catch Zhang Weili unexpected, but it's actually her that got caught unexpectedly. Taking off that angle only put her in more danger as she angled into a spinning back fist, increasing the damage. Joanna noticed Zhang Weili in a very awkward stance, and she gave a look like she didn't know what was going on. She even had her hands down, showing the confusion in the moment. And it's the shot that you don't see coming. Spinning back fist that Joanna did not see ultimately puts her down, but man, that was a hard and unexpected shot that you don't normally see from Zhang Weili, showing her ability to improvise. And for those who don't know, Tony Ferguson is Zhang Weili's favorite fighter, and this is something like he would do. So the spirit of Tony Ferguson enters the cage inside of Zhang Weili at that moment to finish off Joanna. But it's hard to not notice that there was something off about Joanna. It's not that she was sluggish, it's not that she was slow. The approach that she came into this seemed like with a brawling mentality, challenging Zhang Weili's power. She had heavy front attacks, which should have been the opposite of what she tried to do. She is longer than Weili, she's better from a distance. The fact that she did not try to pot shot and move away, be evasive with her footwork, made me scratch my head a little bit. I mean, she was throwing hard right hands, contesting Weili in short range, even though she's better from a distance. And not only that, oftentimes she was looking up at the clock, which was very strange, and that was in the first round too. I don't know exactly what she expected to do, that she kept looking up the clock, maybe trying to find a moment where she could knock Weili out, and maybe she was losing time to do that, and that's why she was tacking so heavy with her right hands like that. But fighters usually start looking at the clock in the last round, not in the first. And look at the way she was throwing her right hands. Joanna has done this a couple times throughout her career, but not on a consistent basis in one fight. She was throwing slapping punches most of the time. The difference between her form and Zhang Weili's was very evident. Weili had all the power generating through her body, ending into her fist, whereas Joanna was throwing these slapping punches. And most of these punches were the ones that were landing on Weili, so you can just imagine, what if Joanna actually threw correct form into these punches? It was super uncharacteristic to see from Joanna, like chopping her hand downward to slap Weili with her punch. Very weird behavior from Joanna, to be honest. The only thing I could kind of point to with her deficiency in her form has to be ring rust. I don't know what else it could have been. Maybe she wasn't into the fight mentally, knowing that she was going to retire and all that stuff. And in the interview, she was saying that she just wants to live life. She doesn't want to do this anymore. And you don't really feel that only at the moment of when you lose. I'm pretty sure with her time off, and she said this before, that she loves living life and she doesn't need to come back ever again. She said this in previous interviews. It may have shown that Joanna had one foot out the door for a while, probably ever since that first Weili fight. Now, that's not to discredit Zhang Weili's performance, because the way she performed here against Joanna, I don't think Joanna would have ever won this. And it could also kind of explain why she was trying to knock Weili out for the whole fight instead of trying to be technical and fight by a more intelligent game plan. She maybe just wanted to have one last bang, one last hurrah, one final show for the fans. And if that's the case, it ultimately backfired on her, because Weili came into this intelligent outside of the hip throw and outside of some of her right hands. That looked like she was kind of desperate for the knockout at times. But for the most part, Weili was on point. And at the end of the day, Joanna retired, setting in stone a legendary career, the most successful strawweight champion so far, participated in the best strawweight fights of all time with Rose Namajunas, with Zhang Weili, with Claudia Gadelha. I mean, just amazing performances throughout her career. I still remember her rise up to where she fought Claudia the first time, to her surgical work on Carla, to her destruction of Jessica Penne, her great fight against Carolina. I mean, Joanna's been in some of the most classic fights in women's MMA. It's sad to see her go, but honestly, it's one of the retirements that kind of seems right, and it kind of makes sense. I mean, for a while, again, Joanna's been talking about that she doesn't need to come back anymore and she wants to live a different life. And if that's what she wants, man, I'm super happy for her. I mean, she was my first real favorite female fighter to watch, and hopefully she goes down in the history books, man. And as for Zhang Weili, title shot, baby. Get Carla Esparza out here, because, man, she's most likely going to be in trouble. I don't want to say that for sure, because we said the same thing with Aljamain Sterling. Carla may be able to be too much with her wrestling, and Weili doesn't have a solution to it. So I am not going to count out Carla, but she will be at a disadvantage in the fight for sure. If she's able to pull this one off, Carla is just amazing then. So I hope you guys enjoyed the breakdown, and if you did, make sure to give this a thumbs up. If you enjoyed my content, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell, and I'll see you guys in the next one.